Hello everyone, and thank you for taking your time to watching this report. My name is Vironie Ederosas, and I'm your second reporter for Group 6 together with Jason and Doso with the topic of social cost benefit analysis. In my report, we will tackle all about the little Merle's approach. So, what's in it in Merle's approach? Little Merle's approach is all about trading items and finding opportunities in world prices as well in domestic prices. So, when we say trade refers to the voluntary exchange of goods or services between economic factors essential for keeping a competitive global economy and lowers the prices of goods internationally. So the ability to trade and also access to goods and services that might be have higher quality and lower cost than its original domestic alternative. Our topic is all about Little Merle's approach, which we will talk about why Merles and Little discovered this approach and why does India is using it. We all know that India has many problems when it comes to trading. Of course, when doing business in India, they always encounter the non-transparent regulations or the tariffs or barriers when trading in their products. And US does have a hard time coping if Indians can usually pay the prices that are imported and exported to them. When we say import and exported, we will also tackle it what does it mean in the later topics. Another problem is if US companies must evaluate whether they can sell prices that Indians are willing to pay, and they may need to adjust their pricing models accordingly. So for example, some consumer pack some canned goods or canned good companies make their products in smaller sizes or with fewer features to reflect the price or the Indians that has the ability to pay. So for example, they can pay a $15 large canned goods. So the US must pack it with fewer quantities so the amount can equally match to what Indians can eventually pay. India also has significant infrastructure development needs and improvements in this sector that are vital to economic growth. For example, India's roads, railways, airports, seaports, and they are often congested and inefficient. So India has often a delayed success or delayed growth, economic growth due to these regulatory rules and frameworks or the inefficiencies in the project approval because of their government rules, their government barriers and tariffs. So, when considering and building a project, especially in India, we must consider the discipline and the opportunities that can be made within investment decisions. So, we must consider the world prices and the domestic prices that has the ability to calculate to their future economic growth. IMD, Little, and J.A. Merles have developed an approach to social cost benefit analysis. The Little Merles technique assumes that a country can buy and sell any quantity of a particular good at a given world price. Hence, all traded inputs and outputs are valued at the international prices. CIF for importables and FOB for exportables. FOB or free on board is a term used to indicate when the ownership of goods transfers from buyer to seller and who is liable to goods damaged or destroyed during shipping. CIF or cost insurance and freight is commonly used for large deliveries, including oversized goods that are shipped by the sea. The seller has the responsibility to loading the shipment into the vessel. Under FOB contracts, the buyer is responsible for shipping and other costs, as well as insurance as soon as the goods are loaded into the vessel and during the voyage. For example of this is the buyer in Lazada, Shopee, or Shein. Next is under the CIF contracts, the seller assumes responsibility for costs and liabilities until the shipment arrives at the destination, at which time the risk is transferred to the buyer. So example of this is the gravel of sand, the oversized products like metals. Usually this CIF is good for construction materials. So let me discuss to you the main summary of Little Merle's approach. James Mirrlees has been influential in several areas. With Little, he contributed to development economics through the manual, a practical guide to use of the cost-benefit analysis. The manual was designed to contribute to influence of the economic conditions of developing countries. It took as its starting point the use of shadow prices to value all inputs and outputs regardless of whether they were marketable or non-marketable, and showed how shadow prices should be determined. In order to calculate the costs and benefits of the project, market values of inputs and outputs are used. By these market values may not reflect their true value. That is why shadow prices are used. Shadow prices of traded goods under Little Merle's approach, costs and benefits are measured in terms of international prices. It is also referred as the border prices, the provisions related with the traded goods. There are three classifications of inputs and outputs of our project: traded goods and services, non-traded goods and services, and lastly, labor. When we say traded goods and services, it means it is a tradable, which means it can be imported or exported. Imported means it comes from outside the country, and exported, it comes from our country to be exported outside to our country. So when we say imported, like for example, chocolate. Imported chocolate means the chocolate comes from another country and entered our country. And when we say exported, for example, our coffee. We exported our coffee that we grew, we cultivated it, and we transported it to another country. Non-tradable goods are tradable goods which cannot be traded because of the trade policies of the country. It can be its international transport cost is too high to permit exports or too low to make import attractive. So there are many examples of non-traded goods. It includes such as items as electricity, water supply, all public services, hotels, accommodation, real estate, construction, local transportation, goods with very high transportation costs such as gravel, sand, and commodities to produce product that need special customs or conditions of the country. So no border price is available for non-traded goods because it is non-tradable. And lastly, labor. Labor should be considered as a service and not goods. But for the respect of any project, manpower is required. In addition to other inputs, it means that labor is hired for the project. It must consider the project's impact on the rest of the economy. As we can see, the Little Models approach provides a comprehensive framework for SCBA or social cost benefit analysis in developing countries. Differences between UNIDO and Little Models approach. The UNIDO approach measures costs and benefits in terms of domestic rupees, whereas the Little Mileage approach measures costs and benefits in terms of international prices, also referred to as border prices. Rupee is the common name for the currencies of India. The UNIDO approach measures costs and benefits in terms of consumption, whereas the Little Mileage approach measures costs and benefits in terms of uncommitted social income. So when we say uncommitted social income, means public income which is not earmarked for any specific type of work. Earmark can be a noun meaning a mark, or an identification, or a verb meaning to set aside for a specific purposes. Like for example, all public incomes are not valuable. Like public income generated by particular project may be earmarked for specific purposes, like the toll in SLEX or NLEX collected, it is purposely collected for maintenance of their highways. So the public income which is not earmarked is much more valuable. The third is the stage-by-stage analysis recommended by UNIDO approach, focuses on efficiency, savings, and redistribution. The Little Mileage approach, however, tends to view these considerations altogether. The limitation of social cost benefit analysis. The nature of social benefits and costs are such that there cannot be any standard method or techniques applicable to all of types of investment projects. A bridge, a road, or a housing colony, or an industrial project will each require a different approach while identifying and measuring its social cost benefits and costs. For example, of course, not all projects are the same. Not all of them are built the same. They may have been the same company or the same buildings, but they're all different. They're all unique. Not all projects are the same. At another level, the problems of qualification and measurement of social costs and benefits are formidable. This is because many of these costs and benefits are intangible, and their money in terms of money is bound to be subjective. Even with honesty of purpose, assessment of social good and social evil is likely to be tainted by the analyst's own ideas, and subjective preferences and the resultant decision may not serve the socio-economic goals which might have been initially formulated. Of course, there are changes. We cannot predict what might happen in the future. It could be the social good or social evil, but when money is subjected, usually the economic growth is much more prioritized than the rest. A successful application of the techniques of analysis depends upon the accuracy and reliability of the forecast. Even when the evaluation of social cost benefits has been completed for one project, it may be difficult to judge whether any other project would yield better results from the social point of view. That's why it is better to cross-check and to always check the forecast, because we may never know what will happen, and maybe some projects may be difficult while the other project could yield better results. Even economic assessments suffer from certain drawbacks due to distortion in the price mechanism caused by imperfections in the labor market, government control, tariffs and quotas, and price inflation. Of course, there will always be price inflation. That is why all the financial analysis must always keep their hard work. and must always provide, and don't just rely on social cost benefit analysis. Don't just rely on little Merle's approach, but instead always give their best to yield successful results. And this is the ending of my report. Thank you for listening. Have a good day.